Head getting big now, I was on deck with it back then. Boy, I give them nothing but the his now. We the spectators, on the head coach, getting nothing but commits now. Going way,
hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Awkward Situations, a series where you guys leave comments about situations that are happening in your lives that are awkward or embarrassing in the comment section below, and then I talk about those situations. I have a lot of things that I could potentially talk about in this folder where I save your comments, so I'm just going to be a little more loose today and go through some things. Most of them aren't even awkward, or some of them are relationship problems, which are kind of redundant and make me repeat myself, which I tried to avoid, but it's inevitable. So that's going to happen, and I've got the face cam on. I have some Black Ops 2 gameplay in the background. I actually uploaded a Black Ops 2 video over the weekend, and it was a hectic weekend, by the way. I'm not going to go into the small, boring details of my life, but Easter happened and got together with some family that I hadn't seen before and spent more time with them than I thought I would. And then tax day is tomorrow, the 18th. I got my taxes all in order today. I'm surrounded by financial documents to the point that it stresses me out because I don't like numbers and paying large amounts of money to the United States government, but I'm doing it anyway because I also like to live in the United States government, not in a prison cell. So that's what we got to do. But I'm going to try to relax and get into these questions. You guys can watch the Black Ops 2 gameplay in the background. You can look at my face and my awkward hairline, or you could just listen in another tab while you play a game or do something else. So let's get into awkward situations right now. Without any further ado, let's hit up awkward situation number one. Hey Joel, I'm a freshman in college, almost 20, and I grew up in a small town in Iowa where almost everybody would go drinking, including all my roommates, and just like sidearms, I still haven't drank, mostly because I don't know how I would act. Do you have any advice for me? Thanks. This is an interesting question because there's no class in high school where you can learn what college is going to be like in a real sense, what college party etiquette is like, what it feels like to drink a lot, and what it feels like to do particular types of drugs. These are all life experiences that you have to discover for yourself or not discover for yourself if you don't feel like it. I can explain my personal situation. I had a lot of friends in high school who drank and some who did drugs, and I did not do that because I am not the most social person in the world. I probably give off this impression by playing a lot of video games and talking to a camera alone in my room, but I'm an introvert. And when it comes down to it, drinking and partying in general is a social activity. Some people drink because they like the feeling of getting drunk, or, I mean, you could go a little further down the line and say that's a problem or it will become a problem. I like to drink to loosen myself up at this age, but I didn't really start drinking, honestly, until I was 21, and that's kind of abnormal. It's kind of weird that that's seen as abnormal because that is the legal drinking age in the United States. I know a lot of countries, the legal drinking age is 18 or 19. We live very close to Canada here in Michigan, so a lot of my friends, when they turn 19, go to Canada, but I didn't do that. I just stayed in Michigan and said, I can wait 2 years, 3 years. What? I can't math. Yeah, 2 years. The border is an hour and a half away. I'd rather just sit in my room and play video games. But and then on my 21st birthday, I stayed in my room and played video games. So fucking cool party animal, Joel. But I started drinking more when I turned 21 and going out more and socializing more, just because I've always been slower to want to socialize and slower to develop socially, I would say. So I think of drinking and all of that stuff as a social activity. If you don't feel like you want to socialize or don't want to drink for that reason, that's perfectly fine and perfectly normal, and you maybe will one day, maybe you won't. It's not a big deal. Either way, if you're concerned that drinking makes you feel sick or some weird thing, I actually have this feeling about marijuana. I've never smoked marijuana before, and I might if it was legal in Michigan. It's not, so I don't really think about it because I don't want to go through the process of getting a drug dealer. I already know too many people, and then I'm going to have to go through Craigslist or whatever and find a marijuana dealer, or I'll have to break my shoulder to get a marijuana prescription. It just sounds very, I don't have time for all that. So I can wait until it's legal, and I might try it or I might not. I just don't know how I feel, and I don't know if I care. So maybe that's how you feel about alcohol. If you want my opinion, I think if you can learn to drink in moderation, I've never had a problem with knowing my limit. It's not like you take 3 drinks and then you forget how to limit yourself. I mean, up to a certain point, and it's usually way down the line, you can really handle your alcohol. But I also have to make a disclaimer that all body types are different. Since I am a larger man, my tolerance is higher than to just pick out someone. My wife is a smaller woman. So our limits aren't the same. And when we drink the same amount, it affects her way differently than it affects me. I'm still pretty capable. And since she's smaller, it affects her, she, woo, I don't know where I am. So she doesn't have a problem. I'm sorry for painting her in that light. But I would just say, if you're worried about it, do it with people you trust or do it alone at home. Don't drink too much at home. Don't buy a half gallon of vodka and just swig it down while watching Wheel of Fortune. That's a problem. But it loosens you up after a couple of drinks, and it makes it easier to socialize, makes it easier to have a good time. I'm not advocating one way or the other. If you're concerned, I said I was going to be short about these topics, and I've already spent too much time on this one, so I would just say, don't worry about it. If you want to do it, do it. Do it with people you trust. Do it alone. If you feel like it's going to be weird and it's not, whatever you picture it as, it's not that bad or that good. You always picture an extreme one way or the other for any situation in life. So it's not that bad or it's not that good. It's just a thing. Hey, Joel, I'm kind of an awkward person and was wanting to know how to ask my girlfriend's father, I assume you meant father, for her hand in marriage the farther, and I get along well. I'm just not sure on how to do it. Did you ask Megan's father? Longtime fan from New Zealand. Well, Megan's father and I get along very well. I did ask for her hand in marriage. I think it's good to do that, especially if the person that you're trying to marry, the wife, has a good relationship with her parents. And I know some people don't do it traditionally, which is okay too. It's just personally what I felt like doing, and I know Megan would have appreciated me doing that. So what I did was I called him up on his old cell phone. As some people tell me, like my brother-in-law said, I took my wife's parents out to a nice breakfast, and I made them breakfast, and then I asked them at the table together. And while I like my father-in-law and both of my parents-in-law, I don't, call them up and say, hey, you want to go see Logan at IMAX at 10 p.m.? That's stuff I do with my dad, but I sit and watch sports with him. We go to sports games together. So I could have asked at a sports game, I guess, but if we were at like a Michigan State game and they were losing, I didn't want to be like, well, geez, this is one of the worst nights of my week, but hey, can I marry your daughter? Because I get really into the games. So I honestly got really stressed out about it. That was the most stressful part of the wedding, because once you ask the father for her hand in marriage, then you don't, it's not like a legally binding contract, but then if you don't ask her to marry you, the dad's going to be like, so what happened with that whole marriage thing? That made it really final that I was really going to go through with it. And I was sure that it was what I wanted to do, but it's also one of the biggest decisions you make in your life. So very stressful. I just ended up calling him on his cell phone the weekend before I proposed. No, a couple of days before I proposed to Megan. And I proposed to her over a weekend that we stayed in Grand Rapids together. So I just called him up and I was like, hey, quick question for you. Can I marry your daughter, or some mumble jumble bullshit? I'm sure I sounded extremely nervous and stuttered a lot. And he was actually out to lunch with his mother, Megan's grandmother. So he had to be like, oh, excuse me, I just got to give my daughter's hand in marriage. I don't know. He was cool about it. He laughed. He understood the awkwardness of the situation. He's not a super intimidating fellow. So I wasn't intimidated myself. And he was kind of, if this is how I would be if someone asked for my daughter's hand in marriage. If I had a daughter, I would be like, this is such an awkward scenario. Yeah, I guess marry her unless you're a criminal or something. But he was cool about it, and it's one of those things in life that you just have to get through. You got to get through root canals. You got to get through awkward experiences. I don't want to compare it to a root canal. I've never had a root canal. I'm very nervous. I'll have to have one in the future. But I got through it, and you can get through it too. A phone call, at the very least, is not that hard to do. It's a lot harder in today's day and age when we all text. But I would suggest that. I guess you don't necessarily have to do it, but I would just say a phone call, or if you do an activity together, like if you go golfing with them, sometimes I would do it over a golf round if you want to do that. I don't really know, but it's cool that you're from New Zealand. I'm a big fan of Lorde. So sorry to change the topic, and don't worry too much about it. I'm sure you'll figure it out, and good luck with the marriage and stuff. Joel, you've done a lot for me. I just came to university and realized it's okay to be a bit awkward. Met a girl and got some really good friends, all because I figured, hey, people like Joel, and he's a little awkward. You even say so yourself. And so I just started to be me. Can't thank you enough. Obviously, this isn't an awkward situation where someone needs advice, but I should have read this right after I read the first awkward situation about hanging out with people in college for the first time and making new friends for the first time in a while, because after you've been in high school, you don't make new friends typically for about 4 years. You have the same friends for 4 years or longer. I had those same friends my whole life, and then I went to college and had to make all new friends. It was a weird and awkward and scary experience, but once you get past the age of 18 and start to grow up a little bit, you realize more and more who you are as a person, and you're okay with that. Because I feel like in high school, you're trying to be an imitation of a person that you want to be more frequently, and the older I get, the more I'm just me. And I realize who I am, I realize what I like and what I don't like, and things get a lot easier once you accept that you're awkward, like myself. So just a quick reminder for everyone watching this video. Awkward situation, I'm a girl and I was at a party with a bunch of guys. I was wearing really short shorts, and when I fell asleep, it turns out 2 guys came on my thigh/ass and recorded it, and it got sent out to half of my school. A lot of my friends haven't talked to me in a week, and everyone is calling me cum dumpster. On top of all of this, some douche anonymously sent the video to my parents, and they confronted me about it, and I didn't know what to say. If you can please help me on the social issues about this, that would be great. I don't really mind the part about my parents, thanks. This is more serious than a lot of the awkward situations I deal with. I try to keep it kind of light and keep it relatable. I cannot relate to this. I have not had this situation happen to me, but I will say that this is not an awkward situation. This is sexual assault. So for 2 people to do that to you, honestly, that's disgusting, and I'm very sorry. I hope that you take some type of criminal action if you can. At the very least, it needs to be, you need to talk to a school counselor and then probably go farther from there into some type of other discussions with authority figures. I kind of wish you would have elaborated on how your parents confronted you, because it sounds like they confronted you. Maybe I'm just interpreting it this way, but I hope they didn't confront you in an angry fashion. I would be angry at the people who did that, and if you explained to them that you were asleep and, you were sexually assaulted, then I would hope that your parents would be outraged and try to, find out who did this, take some type of action. This is the kind of thing that parents are there for, to help you through these terrible situations that should happen to no one. Again, I'm sorry that this happened to you. This is gross and disgusting, and it is sexual assault. We need to be honest when confronted with these scenarios in our own lives. There's a case going on where I live in the Lansing area. This doctor at Michigan State University, he was a well-known doctor, very accomplished. He was the doctor for the United States women's gymnastics team, and over 20 years practice, very famous athletic trainer, doctor, whatever. And he's on trial right now for, I guess it would be mass rapes over a 20-year period. I think there's over 90 plaintiffs in the case right now, over 80, at least it's over 80. It's some ridiculously high number. It's one of the biggest sexual assault cases in Michigan history. If you want to look up the details on it, his name is Dr. Larry Nassar. If you Google it, I'm sure it'll pop up pretty quickly, because he was a pretty well-known person before he was charged with this. And it's an authority figure, a little different than your scenario, but this authority figure was treating these girls, but actually molesting them, to treat their backs. He would, insert his fingers where they didn't need to be inserted, with no gloves, and just absolutely disgusting stuff to use that position of power to manipulate and harm little girls. Obviously, this is all alleged because the case is still under trial. I know some of the people that have been affected by this, and a lot of them say the same things. They're all under a gag order now because, I don't know, it's just legal stuff. But the ones that have spoke out said, I didn't think about it at the time, but as I got older, I realized that this was sexual assault. Because, I don't know, I guess you just don't think in those terms as a child. And maybe these boys, however heinous this act was, weren't thinking about how terrible this was. Although I would hope if you're old enough to go to a party, you would be old enough to know that if you're doing that, they should be in some type of legal trouble from what they did. So I hope you get that resolved. Talk to your parents, talk to a school counselor if you don't feel like you can talk to your parents about it, and then they will take it from there. And first of all, but I mean, we're on my third or fourth point, but the cum dumpster thing is ridiculous. Kids are just fucking idiots. Let's go there. I mean, you fell asleep at a fucking party. I mean, what if it was a guy? I mean, would he? It seems like this is one of those things that guys wouldn't have to deal with. I can't think of a scenario. I feel like something like this has happened before at a party at my school. Maybe it didn't blow up like this, and maybe it hasn't. Maybe it's not all over your school, but you did say that there was a social aspect of it, and that's what you're concerned about. But I mean, you were sexually assaulted. If your friends stop talking to you because of this, they are shitty friends, or they just don't understand the dynamics of being a human. I don't really know what to say about that. I guess all I can say is talk to a school counselor. It's a little bit beyond me and not something I've dealt with and have really experienced advice about. But yeah, I just don't know why your friends wouldn't be supportive in this scenario. That's dumb, and I hope they all get hit by a bus. So I hope you can get that figured out. I'd love an update on that if you do get it figured out and talk to a counselor or whatever. Again, everyone out there, I live in a college campus area, and you just need to be aware and not ashamed of sexual assault. It happens. It should be reported. The worst part of sexual, and I can't speak from experience again, but it's the sexual assault is like a double whammy. First of all, the sexual assault part, being you don't want to have your body manipulated in that way, and that's terrible. But the shame around it is the second part that just combined together, just a terrible criminal act to have to deal with. So I hope you get that figured out. Let's do maybe one or two more situations in this folder. This isn't really an awkward situation, but I would like some advice. I'm moving in with my girlfriend soon, but I occasionally have night terrors, and I don't know how to tell her. I'm scared she's going to no longer want to sleep in the same bed anymore or even live in the same house. I know I'm overreacting, but when I have these night terrors, I wake up somewhere completely different than where I fell asleep. It's only happened once this year and 3 times last year, but it is a concern for me. I've been to the doctor for this. This is something I can personally relate to because I was treated for night terrors as a kid. I mean, I talked about it to a psychologist when I was a little older, and I believe I talked to a doctor about it when I was a kid and had some psychological stuff done. That was when I was really young, so I can't fully remember that, but I remember talking to this when I first started going into therapy in my teens. But night terrors, something I've dealt with, not something I have dealt with for a while. I have really vivid dreams, and I do have nightmares sometimes. I actually had trouble going to sleep last night. I was afraid I was going to have nightmares about that Cleveland killer, that terrible situation, just one of the poisonous things you see on social media. Someone just goes live on Facebook and kills an innocent man. One of the more disgusting things you can see in this world, and probably contributes to my negative headspace right now, that this isn't a very funny episode of awkward situations, but they don't all need to be hilarious, but it's just one of those shitty things you see. And it happened in Ohio and Michigan and Pennsylvania are two of the states that need to be on alert, and Indiana, that this killer, this insane lunatic, is on the loose. And I just went into a negative headspace, and I couldn't get to sleep because I was worried I was going to have a nightmare about that. I do have some pretty intense nightmares still to this day, but as I've gotten older, the night terrors have gone away. I sleep more now. I used to just stay up really late and not sleep, and when I would have the night terrors, I would have to have my parents come in the room with me because I would just wake up. I would have one nightmare, wake up sweating, fall back asleep, have another nightmare, or the same nightmare, wake up sweating. So I know what that's like, and I can relate to that, and I'm sorry that you're going through that. I hope you get treatment that helps you. For me, I kind of grew out of it. I still have dreams, but I can kind of relax, and I have some relaxation techniques. But in terms of telling your partner, I don't know why you should worry about that. I mean, there's things that when you live with someone for the first time, you have to integrate your life into that person's life. And I don't think this is such a big deal unless it's, maybe if you sleepwalk to your garage and get a chainsaw in the middle of the night, that's something she should be concerned about. If you've ever had one of those night terrors, I can't help you. I mean, that's a pretty bad one. If you think your girlfriend is a tree and you go to the garage and get a chainsaw, man, this is some dark shit. But other than that, I mean, waking up in different places, having sleepwalking, stuff like that. I know people in my life that have had that and their partners deal with it, and it just is not a big deal. If you tell her ahead of time, I don't think she'll be freaked out by it. I would hope she wouldn't be freaked out about it, especially if you tell her that you have gone to a doctor, you're getting treatment, and you're working on these things. That's just something you have to deal with when you're... if you had to give me the choice between a partner who snores loudly every night or someone who sleepwalks, give me the sleepwalker. I mean, that would be exciting to wake up and see, oh, my loving partner is in the bathtub upside down and they wrote 666 on their forehead with a red Sharpie in the middle of the night. That's cute, but at least he didn't wake me up because he wasn't snoring. So I would pick option B. Just personally, I don't know if I'm trying to appeal to you, but it's not a big deal. I would just tell her, and I hope she won't be concerned about it unless she's, I don't know, really picky about her partners. And you have to learn to not be picky about your partners, or I don't know what I'm talking about. You should be picky about who you live with, but this is a small thing, in my opinion, to summarize my thoughts. Let's do one more awkward situation or question. Can anyone, or even Joel himself, please elaborate on what exactly he means by YouTube being 75% shut off? As an individual who has a few videos rolled up that I've spent hours on editing that I did out of the love of cinematography, but also, let's be real, I'm trying to make a few dollars and make a name for myself, and if YouTube is beginning to shut off, that worries me as someone trying to build. Obviously, this is a little bit of a self-serving awkward situation because it's something that's currently on my mind and that I'm currently thinking about. I don't remember if I said YouTube was 75% shut off. I may have used those words. I would say that to give people an idea of what's going on, it's different for everyone on YouTube. I can't take a poll of every single YouTuber. I'm sure that, and I know for a fact that YouTubers who are particularly kid-friendly are not having as many problems as channels like myself or my friends' channels, or honestly, the majority of channels on YouTube who do, I guess, there's so many channels on YouTube. I don't know how I could say the majority, but I feel like a lot of channels on YouTube do swear and aren't necessarily always kid-friendly. Those are the channels that are having the problems. But those are also some of the biggest channels on the platform. I mean, PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye swears, Markiplier swears. I don't know how any of those three... I know PewDiePie isn't kid-friendly or classified as kid-friendly. Maybe Jack and Markiplier are, but H3H3 is not classified, so on and so forth. So if you just named some of the biggest stars on the platform, they would not be kid-friendly. And those are the channels that are seeing these issues. My revenue for any person that cares about this is still at about 50% or lower than what it should be because of, well, and then this is a problem I have with YouTube. I do have communication with them more than I used to, and this is something that benefits me and them, so I haven't understood this, but I don't understand why there isn't more communication than we currently get to know what the issues are, what creators should do about it, and probably honestly the answer is there's nothing we can do about it. It's something that YouTube has to figure out with these advertisers because of this advertiser boycott that happened over a Wall Street Journal article about ads on racist videos or something. I don't know. It's something I can't control, something myself and my friends can't control, but as it currently stands, every video I upload is making half as much as it normally would for this time of the year. I don't know when that's going to get better. I assume it's going to get better. It's a little bit scary for me because I just paid my taxes and I made an error on my taxes, kind of had a little bit of penalties racked up. My personal problem that I need to work towards. Basically, when you're self-employed, you just make a lot of mistakes and then, let me add this to my list of mistakes that I can correct and learn from and do better. So I'm excited to fix that mistake, but it is a mistake. It cost me a lot more money than I should have been paying. So that's going to be something I work on for next year, but don't have the most money right now. And it doesn't hurt me right now. It hurts me in June and July because YouTubers get paid 2 months in 2 months after the month. I don't know how to explain it. So what this video makes will be paid to me in 2 months from now because that's how everything on the internet works. Whatever work you do, you get paid for it 2 months later. So I hope I'll be better by then in terms of financial stability and have a little more money saved up. I'm a little in the hole right now just after paying taxes, and I'm not living month to month. I'm saving a little bit on top of what I have, but I'm going to have to dip into it a little bit in June, and I'm making a bunch of changes right now, trying to figure out how I can diversify. I should probably be selling merch if I'm going to do a podcast, something I need to do. I don't want to use something like Patreon, but it might be something to look into. I would only want to use it, though, if I was going to have a podcast or do something different than I'm currently doing, because I don't feel like I should be getting paid separately from YouTube for what I'm currently doing. Should probably be streaming more. I was talking to some of my friends about maybe going into a separate, kind of not separate, but a business venture where with some office space. Maybe I'll move into an office space, but that would also be expensive. And then just downgrading where I currently live. I'm paying a lot for where I currently live. So long story short, as an adult, you have some points in your life when you have a lot on your plate and you kind of just got to eat all that shit up. And, you know, maybe you're going to feel good or maybe you're going to feel shitty because you ate a lot of bad Mexican food and you got food poisoning. So I'm going to do one of those two things. I don't know what's on my, well, I know what's on my plate right now. I don't know if I'm going to get food poisoning, financial food poisoning. I'll have to let you guys know down the line, but it's my concern and my concern only. I talk about it so people can stay informed because I feel like it's important to be honest with my audience. And I'm saying it at the end of a video that is 20 to 30 minutes long because I don't want to make a dedicated video about it. It sounds like complaining to me. I have a very good life. I have a very good job. I have a very good relationship. There's just frustrations in this job, as with any job. I was just quickly at the end to summarize things. I was talking to my dad, and I consider my dad to be my outlet if I need to vent something or vent frustration. I have a good relationship with my dad and my mom, but just I talked to my mom about things a lot when I was younger, and then as I'm older, I relate to my dad more. I don't know, maybe that's a thing for all of you out there too. And I was talking to my dad and complaining about, you know, self-employed people get screwed over. This is bullshit. I hate all this stuff. I hate not knowing what I'm gonna make. I hate all this. And he kind of he's very calm, and he said, well, let me just tell you how I feel, Joel. I work for salary. I have a good job. I've been working for 20 years at the same place, 20 to, I think it's 24. I don't know. He's been working in the same place for a very long time, and he's moved up and he's advanced. I know what I'm going to be paid every single day. I could do more or less, or I could do more work. I could do less work. I get paid the same amount every single day. There is a frustration in that, the same way that there is a frustration for you to be worried that you're not going to make enough. But at the same time, if you work a lot harder, if you get lucky, if you catch a few breaks as you've always caught, then you could make way more money. So the grass isn't always greener on the other side. That's something to think about for all of you who are trying to figure out what you want to do with your lives right now. None of us have this figured out. None of us. I just, one of my biggest fucking pet peeves is when I see YouTubers who caught breaks, and a lot of them worked really hard, but they just got really lucky, and they tell you they got it all figured out. Even if you're really successful, I can guarantee you, maybe if you're really arrogant, maybe it's just not my headspace. You think you know everything, but just getting older it feels like more and more I'm learning what I don't know, as opposed to reaffirming that I am the smartest person on earth. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, and just know that whatever you choose, the other options may seem better, but they're not necessarily better. So I guess we'll end on that semi-positive note. I don't even know. I'm sorry if this was kind of more of a downer episode. Like I said, it's kind of rough to always be in a positive headspace, especially with social media and everything else that's going on in the world. But I hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Back when I was in the basement, back then, I would write until my hand hurt.